Alright, I've been putting it off for a few days now. I think it's about time we talk about Payday 3's Mask Mania event, because I've got quite a lot to say about it, and I know some of the YouTubers have already given their thoughts. I wanted to wait until the event had fully ended to make some overall comments on it, and then there was the surprise bug fix update on Monday that I wanted to focus on. So now today, we're talking about Mask Mania, and all the things it didn't do well. I realise this is going to be quite a negative video, and I already got some flack from my Monday video about the update being average, which again, I never said the update was bad, but people seem to think that I did say it was bad. There were just some bad things to it. I'm trying to be as balanced as I can, but some people clearly didn't pick that up. So I want to stress here, this is going to be extremely negative. The only reason for that is because I literally don't have anything positive to say about this event really, other than the masks were really cool, and the idea of trying to do an event to unlock them was a cool idea. I think the idea for the event was fine, but in about every other way possible, execution wasn't very good. So what I'm going to do is talk about all the things that I think didn't go very well, or weren't explained well, or things that have come to light since, and then at the end give my overall thoughts on how I would have done the Mask Mania event based on my own personal feelings of fellow content creators, and most importantly, feelings of you guys, because there's been a lot of thoughts about it. But before I get into it very quickly, as always, if you are new to this channel and you want to stay in touch with all future Payday 3 content, whether that be news, reviews, theories, anything in between, make sure you click that subscribe button down below. We're trying to get to 40,000 subscribers and we're quickly approaching it. Thank you to everyone who's clicking that button at the minute. If you're watching a lot of my content and you keep coming back and you haven't subscribed, it's free to do so. Please do. I'd really, really appreciate it. So, let's talk about Mask Mania. To start this off, I think the best thing to do is to hand the mic over to you guys via a poll I put out while the event was in progress. Quite a few of you put in the comments that you had no idea the event was happening, and that's a point I will get to later, but this poll had 5 options. It's a fun event, a mid-event, a bad event, you're not playing the game for it, or you want to see the poll results, and 3,600 of you voted in the poll. However, I'm going to take out and recalculate the poll, removing the people who just want to check the results. And using my maths expertise, which I really don't get to use enough, that means that about 2,848 people voted in the top 4 results. 85% of people, in some way, shape, or form, did not think this was a fun event. That's a staggering majority for the negative or even just the middling. So it's clear that it's not just the content creators shouting into a void here. There's a lot of people who really didn't enjoy this event. So let's talk about why that's the case. What I've tried to do is list the most important things and have them connect through to each other, leading up to, as I've said later in the video, where I'll give my overall thoughts on how this event should have been carried out. And of course, I'll always have chapter markers in there. So let's start with the first biggest problem. No in-game acknowledgement or rewards for this event whatsoever. Unless you're tuned into the mainframe and are watching myself or another Payday content creator, regularly checking the weekly blogs, or maybe occasionally checking Payday social media, you've got no idea an event was even happening. And the amount of people, as I've said already in my poll comments, my YouTube comments, my general community, who had no idea what Mask Mania was and had to have it explained to them, is quite frankly a joke. A lot of the issues that happen with this event are things that Payday 2 proved that could be done by Starbreeze, and that's why it makes me a bit less sympathetic towards how this event was constructed. Yes, it's Payday 3's first event, but it's not Starbreeze's first in-game event, and I think some consideration has to be made for that, regardless of whether there's different devs on the team. The company as a whole should use its prior knowledge to make a better event, or at least an event just as good in their new game. An issue that I know a lot of you have commented about previously, not showing in Payday 2 transferring to Payday 3, a lot of features missing. Feels like a similar attitude here. Even something as simple as an in-game pop-up in the corner of the screen, and goodness knows in that main menu there's enough space for it, to say Mask Mania is live now, just to tell you can play heists to earn progress to masks, even if it ends up taking you to a hyperlink to look at the website for it, whatever it might be, just letting people know to find out more online would be a good start. But that's supplemented by the fact that you don't get the masks in-game when the community unlocks them. When you've unlocked them, you've got to wait for an update to come out that'll give you the masks. And as I argued on Monday, that July update, no one really saw it coming. Almis said there wasn't an update coming in July, and it wasn't really specified there'd even be a bug fix one. So everyone was under the impression, or most people were, there wouldn't be an update at all. Instead, this update goes out on Monday, the day after the event ends, and doesn't give us the masks. Now, I know what you're probably saying to me right now. You're probably saying, Troy, they didn't know which mask was going to win, so how could they have the update release in time with console approval, etc., as to which mask would unlock on which day? Yeah, that's fair. Based on console approval, even if it only takes them a couple of days, they would have had to submit that update a little bit ahead of time, and therefore they wouldn't know when that update dropped which mask was going to win. But the lack of communication there and not really telling us exactly what's going to happen, not stressing there will be an update, but please bear in mind, because we won't know which masks won, they won't be in that update, a simple explanation, that just leaves a sore taste in my mouth personally seeing an update drop and then not be any acknowledgement. Not talking about it and communicating effectively just makes this feel a lot worse, but this whole point is about a lack of communication in game, so it's not really a change, unfortunately. I do have a theory, and this is based on limited game dev knowledge, so if you have any more information and you want to clarify, please do in the comment section below. My thought would have been, since some people will have to unlock all 4 masks anyway because they won't have taken part in the event, in my poll about 40% of the people who voted didn't, I wonder if they could have added all 4 masks in the Monday update behind the hardcore challenges, and then flipped a switch to automatically unlock the mask for anyone who played Payday 3 in that that window once the event had concluded. Maybe even after they'd come back from their summer holiday, which I know they're on at the minute. Perhaps people could have wanted to do the hardcore challenges even if they'd unlocked the mask. It could have been fun, and people who didn't want to do the challenge could wait until the switch was flipped. That would have even been a good middle ground. The hardcore cook-off challenge is in the game already. That infrastructure exists, so it makes me prompt the question, could they have done that? I don't know, and I want to know your theories. This is me spitballing and seeing what everyone else thinks. But speaking about communication and the lack of in-game features, one thing I do think that let this event down was they overcalculated the money and undercalculated the time needed. It could be both, it could be one or the other. I don't know which one you think is the more important one, but I'll start with the time and lead into the money. Especially considering that this event wasn't announced in-game, it is beyond me as to why they do a blog post to announce the event and then give the event a different release date in the middle of the week and say you've only got one weekend effectively for most people to actually take part in that event. If they'd started the event on the Friday the blog went out, you would have had an initial weekend to build up hype, get some numbers up, then a bit of a lull during the week where not as many people are playing because of work or school or whatever it may be, and then one last weekend for a final push to round things off. Almost like how some games have 2 weekend betas and you have a big initial rush and then a big jump at the end, depending on the days. Weekends are the biggest time for activity, and I think having more time on the community side would have really helped to increase motivation. And if, for example, you happen to be a player who checks Payday 3 news to see what's going on, doesn't bother with their socials, because let's face it, the communication is inconsistent at best, you'll see the only event-related post on their website is the blog saying it's coming next week. There was no post on the website the day it went live, there was no post on the website when the income was doubled, nothing, no communication there. So overall, there just wasn't enough time to take part in the event and not enough ways that people could find out it was even going on in that very brief window. But as I said, the other thing was there not being enough money. Now, every mask, if you didn't know, had a target of $100 billion you had to earn by playing one of the 2 heists associated with each of the 4 masks to level up that respective progress bar. Now, I can understand the logic of why they did it money-wise, because of course some heists pay more than others, but the money they've tried in the game, at least as far as I can see, to balance the money you get based on the time spent in the heist. In some places that works, in some places it doesn't. Cleaning the bags on dirty ice comes to mind immediately, but the general idea is that you get IP and money balanced based on the length of time you spend in the heist. It's not exact, but it's what they've tried to do. So it just meant you'd have to spend the same amount of time playing a heist, even if that meant playing some heists more than others, which to some people would be more annoying, and I can understand that. You might want to play a heist a certain number of times rather than for a set period of time, if that makes sense. But even putting that aside, the idea of $100 billion was ridiculous. The blog post said that 2 masks would be easily attainable, and as a community we might get all 4 if we pull together, and they'd calculated those numbers based on current player counts. And then you look at the event results and you see that we only got 1 mask as a community. That was on the last day that we pulled it, and that's after roughly 2 days of double progress in the bars for every heist. Payday Twitter man made a joke saying, oh, no one's looking, I'm going to double the numbers. No, everyone was looking, and they were looking because we weren't going to get there if you hadn't doubled it. I genuinely think there's a decent chance we wouldn't have got a single mask if you hadn't doubled it before that weekend. Again, think about how we might have been able to pull that event off if you'd given us the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday after that blog was announced on top of the current time. I think you wouldn't have had to even double it. There'd have been a decent chance we'd have got 1, maybe 2 masks without any outside interference. But that blog's where they shot themselves in the foot, saying we were fairly likely to get 2 masks and possibly going to get all 4, only getting 1. That is embarrassing. It's genuinely embarrassing. But it gets worse. You see, on one of the recent Payday Play with Almir streams, Almir said that Starbreeze's intention, what they expected the community to do, was to band together, pick 1 mask, and unlock 1 at a time in a specific order, that everyone would come to a unique agreement and do that.
One of the assumptions we made before the event started was that the community would together choose 1 or 2 of the masks to chase together. What has happened so far is that the community created 4 gangs, 1 for each mask, and these 4 different gangs are separately working to try unlock their mask, which is great. But yeah, it was new data for us that that's how it was going to go down.
Okay, fine idea. Then why didn't you tell the partners that? How on earth do you expect the community to band together and pick 1 mask if the content creators they watch, assuming that, say, the standard Payday player watches one of the Starbreeze partners, they might not, but assuming they do, how do you expect the community to band together for 1 mask if their creators can't decide between them which one they want to support? Because we weren't told to do that anyway. This is a ridiculous break in the communication chain. Either Almir's misspoke and that wasn't the plan, but considering he's head of community and a global brand director, I think he'd know what he was on about. Or the more likely option, there was a break in the communication chain and what they wanted for the event was not communicated to us and hence not communicated to the players as well. It's a ridiculous idea to think that what they wanted and what they said were 2 completely different things, and I really don't understand the logic behind that. But as a result, let's talk about the execution of playing the heist. So if you are still living under a rock and you want how the event works explained to you, or just reconfirmed, there were 4 masks that you could earn progress to as a community by playing 2 specific heists for each mask. So for example, Shakedown Shark was the 2 bank heists. It poses an interesting question as to whether people would pick masks based on whether they liked the mask or whether they liked the heists. I said myself, I only picked Shark because it was both the bank heists. I'm a big bank heist enjoyer, Destroyer, so I was going to back the mask that had the banks tied to it. It wasn't my favorite mask. It was probably Cut Ice or Disco Molly, which, side note, Disco Molly being the least popular mask in the bars really surprised me. Maybe it's because people just didn't want to play the heists associated with it, I don't know. But either way, there were 4 masks and they split the 8 base game heists between them, 2 heists each. But it doesn't take a mathematician like myself to figure out that you still had 4 heists spare, which divides quite neatly into those other 4 masks. I don't understand for the life of me why they didn't at the very least tie each of the Legacy and DLC heists to each of the individual masks. You could have had it so they applied to any of them at a reduced rate, or doubled the rate of the specific heists for each mask and had a flat rate for the heists that weren't counted. The idea that Almir had said in my interview with him recently the Boys in Blue had done really well for them in terms of community reception, I'm not sure for sales, but at least for feedback, why not put that as part of the event and have it so that if you play Boys in Blue, you would progress maybe all the masks or a specific one? As a business, I don't understand the logic behind trying to push this DLC out and then not putting it behind a community event where you were trying to get everyone to play to keep interest up in July. That makes absolutely no financial sense to me. I really just don't get it. And as a result, you've got me, who is the perfect case study for the argument I want to make. When I streamed on Tuesday night when the event started, I played No Rest for the Wicked and Golden Shark on loop, kept playing them. Didn't even play them loads and loads of times. I played them quite a few times, and honestly, at the end of that stream, I said to myself, I'm not doing this again. And when I streamed Payday 3 again on Friday, I just played any heist I fancied, because I would have got really bored and frustrated with playing the same 2 heists over and over again. Even as a bank heist lover, I need that variety. Payday 3 is a game that got a lot of stick for not having enough heists at launch, and still after 2 legacy heists and 2 DLC, there's not really quite enough anyway, but we're getting there. That's fine, that's a work in progress. But then retroactively making people ally to certain teams and indicating that you probably should just play 2 heists to back that mask, limiting yourself to 2 heists in the game with not enough, was a stupid idea. It was a really stupid idea. Either way, my final point that I want to make before I pitch my idea of Mask Mania is the progress bars themselves. These were extremely confusing because it took a little bit into the event to find out that $100 billion was even the target. Beyond that, it was just a percentage progress bar to let us know how far we got. So for one thing, why didn't they just change the progress bars from, say, 80% to 80 billion? It would have made sense. 100% was 100 billion. You could easily change those percentages to billion figures, but that's beside the point. The progress bars did some very funny things, especially on, I believe, the second day when there was server maintenance in the morning for Payday 3. There was an intended 3 hours of server downtime. I think in the end it was only 2, which I think is one of the only times Payday 3's server downtime has been less than what it said and not more. The point being, they said, hey, later in the evening, we'll double your progress for 2 hours. But what happened instead? Well, what seems to have happened is they might have actually doubled the progress, but they also doubled the actual counters on the bars. So when that progress started, every progress bar doubled, and at the end of the window, every progress bar jumped back down again. But it seems like it wasn't even tracked properly then, because later on, they had to add the extra progress about 2 hours later, and in the process, also doubled and then halved the money again, which makes now a very good time to share this handy graph on screen now, made by fellow Payday content creator Commander CH, who put this together after watching a bunch of Payday 3 streams and tracking the stats from the streams that were shared on screen via that green screen tracker. But in the interest of transparency, I will also show this version of the graph here, which has gaps. These are the gaps where he didn't have information based on watching different streams, so the full filled in graph is him interpolating the data based on what he had, filling in the gaps, connecting the dots. So there could be different jumps or troughs or anything like that within those gaps, but that's the general trend of the mass progress. And either way, the point I'm looking at are those 2 spikes at the very notable point. I don't even need to highlight them in the graph. You can see them quite clearly. And so just over a day in, the progress bars freaking out like that meant people really didn't know whether the event was being tracked correctly, if at any point the bars were accurate. And so for me, it made me a lot less invested in the event too, because I just thought if it's not being tracked correctly, if I'm not enjoying playing the same 2 heists over and over again, why even bother? It wasn't fun to me, and I didn't want to keep playing it. But that's all the ways I think Starbreeze screwed up with Mask Mania as its execution took place over the last week or so. Now what I want to do is give my perfect pitch as to how I think Mask Mania should have gone, and I welcome all of you to give me your thoughts on this pitch I'm going to make, but also how you would have done Mask Mania. Is it similar? Is it different? Let me know. So combining my own personal thoughts, what Starbreeze supposedly wants the community to do, what you guys wanted to do, here's my pitch. There is 1 progress bar that you have to fill, and along that progress bar at 4 different intervals is a different mask from Mask Mania, unlocked either every $50 million or $75 million. I say $75 million because at the end of the event, a total of $304.7 billion was accumulated across all 4 masks. Now granted, that's because of the double money. If they hadn't done that, it might have been more around the 200 million mark. So I think 50 million is a pretty decent goal to set. And even if that had made the masks too easy to get, at least the community would have felt that they'd done something and felt united in a time where Payday 3 just needs more of that community feeling. So if anything, making it too easy is better than making it too hard. You could even incorporate what you did for Mask of the Week and put a poll out and ask people which mask they think is better and use that to influence which mask unlocks first. You could even be cheeky and make the most voted for one the last one to unlock, just to really drive the community to earn progress towards it. It would have involved the community then and had them work together one by one. But then how would playing the game tie into it? Well, what I would do is every single heist would progress the standard amount towards the bar. But if you pledge allegiance to a particular mask, ideally in-game via a pop-up or on your Nebula account, which is connected to Payday, whatever it might have been, allow yourself to pick a mask that you prefer, and if you play the 2 or 3 heists, if you connect the Legacy and DLC heists into the pool as you should have done, play the specific heist tied to that mask, you'll earn double progress. And that way, from your perspective, you're always earning the same amount for your own account, but when you sometimes play the heist tied to the mask you prefer, you'll earn double for the community. You don't have to intentionally go out your way to do it, but just in general, quick playing or picking random heists, you might sometimes progress the bar even further. It's a good casual way to make sure everyone who's playing, even if they don't know the event is going on, is working towards the event without swinging it in a certain way without realizing. And then obviously, assuming that this hadn't taken place at the exact time that Starbreeze had gone on holiday, the update that came out right after the event ended would have contained the 4 masks, because let's face it, we've seen them in game through the trailers already. They must have been at least close to being ready. Put them in the game behind all their hardcore challenges, and then someone at Starbreeze can hopefully, fingers crossed, depending, Nebula works this way, so there's some leniency here, flick a switch and unlock the masks to everyone who played the game during that weekend based on which ones were unlocked, whether it was all 4, 2, 3, 1, whatever it might have been. Just unlock them for the community. And then the hardcore challenges are there, and maybe people could still complete them and get an arbitrary reward like some C stacks if they already have the mask, because that system's already in the game, like I said, for the cook-off one, so those challenges could have been prepped and ready to go in the game right after the event ended. And that's assuming they couldn't have done it like Payday 2 did, where as we unlocked the community goals together, we got the masks in-game before the event had even ended. That would have been great too, but I'm even giving them leniency there because I'm not sure if Nebula and Unreal Engine and all the stuff they're doing with Payday 3 gets in the way compared to how they did it with Payday 2. I don't know, and I don't want to over-presume. And of course, with all that said and done, I would communicate it via the game itself. I don't think that needs saying, but just to clarify, it would pop up in-game, tell you the event is happening, playing all heist contributes, but if you pick an allegiance, you get double. Players could pick it or ignore it and just keep playing whatever it may be, but either way, they'd be passively contributing even if they didn't actively contribute to the overall event. That's my pitch of Mask Mania. I don't think it's too outside the realms of possibility for a lot of that, if not all of that, to have actually happened, but unfortunately, Starbreeze completely fumbled the bag with this event. And while I do think it's fair to give some consideration to there being different devs working on Payday 3 that may not have been working on Payday 2, Starbreeze has a set number of staff that have persisted from Payday 2 through to Payday 3 who know how a lot of these events worked in Payday 2, or at the very least could remind staff and show them how it was done. I think you're missing the forest for the trees if you say that they couldn't have learned from how Payday 2's events were carried out to then implement them in Payday 3. They weren't necessarily perfect all the time, but they worked a damn sight better than Mask Mania's did. So to see a game that was 10 years old, oversaturated, and definitely poorly optimized, yet still fantastic, like Payday 2 was, do events far better in its latter life cycle than Payday 3's done in its first big launch of a public community event, it's just embarrassing. Nothing short of it. So while this video will come across a lot like my very negative videos that I was doing for several months earlier this year, it's not a sign of things to come, it's just that this event has so little good going for it that I didn't have much else to say that was positive. So that's my overall thoughts on Mask Mania and how I would pitch it if I'd have been in control of the event. We'll see if Starbreeze say anything about the event. They know the community didn't like it, my poll shows they didn't like it, my audience has not liked it, the content creators have not liked it. Maybe they'll acknowledge it in the blog on Friday, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. If they do, I will still make a video on it as almost like a part 2 to this. But assuming nothing else is said, let's hope that Starbreeze can learn from Mask Mania and make a better event for Payday 3 in the future. Let me know what you think of the event down below, my pitch for it, all the feedback I've given on it. I'd like to know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, I greatly appreciate it. Show me you like this video and will help get it on the algorithm for more people to watch. And if you're new around here or keep coming back and you haven't yet clicked that subscribe button, as I've said already, please click it. It would greatly support me and I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you all later this week for the new dev blog video. Until then, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you all in the next one.